Okay, here's a few suggestions for the electric guitar parts for Jesus Only Jesus. We do it in the key of G. I think it's mostly keys and acoustic generally, and in the verse. So here's just some bits and pieces of chords that you can play, imagining that there's lots of from keys and acoustic, nailing down where the time is, just as kind of floaty, more atmospheric, textural things. You want, I'm thinking some character, so there's a little bit of grit on the notes I've got, and some delay in time. You can hear just there. It's only got 2 repeats really. You could probably have a little bit more if you want. I'm choosing, I think, a tape or an analog emulation there, just to kind of have it a little darker and not as strong as the original, whereas some of the more some of the other settings they match it a little bit more in terms of the clarity, and that can be good for some things, but not what I was suggesting for this. So here's a G triad, part of like a G chord, which is kind of like a C chord, moved all the way up to the 10th fret, 9th, 7th, 8th, and 7th again. So you can just play bits and pieces of that chord. I like sticking to the D, G, and B strings quite often, and so a little bit of shake on it just gives it a bit of character. Don't pull it out of tune. So the melodies, who has the power? So who has the power to do? Maybe the G underneath. Just keep listening though to the band. If there's all that stuff from the keys and the acoustic, you really don't need to be playing as functionally as atmospherically. So maybe even da da. What's the notes? Da 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 da. Boo da di da. Boo da di. There's the E minor it goes to. So you might hit the E on this, and then just 2 notes of it, like the outside of that E minor 7 bar chord. Now it goes to a C, 2, no 3. So here's a version of, here's your C bar chord. The middle 3 strings would be that. But sometimes we often substitute the 3 for the 2. In this case, the E note drops to a D, and so you end up with this voicing. Quite pretty. A little tension there. Can be quite cool. So it's C on the 10th fret on the D string, D on the 7th fret on the G string, and G note, 8th fret, B string. There's a C2, which is kind of convenient because it then leads to a G over B, which all you have to do really for those notes is drop that C to a B. So C2 to G over B, then A minor. You can keep the G on top, so that's the first, the minor 3rd, and the flattened 7th for an A minor 7. Think that minor or minor 7 bar chord, and just again playing 3 notes of it. Then to D sus, here's a D sus bar chord, but we're just going to again concentrate on the middle 3 strings. There it is, just for that 1 beat, and then resolving back to the G. You keep the G on the top pretty much then of everything, and that can be quite a cool thing. Keep a bit of unity in those chords rather than jump around everywhere. You're always trying to create parts that have little melodies or repeating phrases or stuff that ties it all together rather than just feels like it's too random, I generally think. When you get to the chorus, it opens up a little bit more, and you want some, it's not the high point in terms of volume and climax of the song, that'll come in the bridge, but you do want maybe some more beef. It's big and slow and meant to feel big, and so some big voicings can work. Maybe 1 strum or 1 hit through a C to no 3. Here's a version of that. So C, G, D, E. 3rd fret on on the A string, open G, 3rd fret on the B, and 3rd fret on the high E. So C, 2, no 3. To G over B, everything is the same except you take the C and drop it to the B. Again, don't hit anything on that D string just to give some distance between the bass note and the rest of the chord. Back to the C. Now, the chord just says there is a G. The melody note's a big C and then to a B. So you could maybe want to think about playing a G sus or just a G5 because you're going for crunch and stuff. But that C note on top is quite... So maybe that's all adore I. Then to G over B, so let that off and then go with the B in the bass, back to C, G, A minor, keep the G on top, only D sus. Now the thing with this stuff, I'm aiming tone-wise to have crunch in there, but not so that it fuzzes out and blurs too much, because if you're playing too many open chords like that, when it gets too sludgy, it just won't work, it'll be a mess. But if you can find enough clarity with the grit, then you can hit those kind of more open string ringy chords and it has some character. If it gets too muddy, not going to work. If it's not got some grit on it and some texture, it might be a little too well, it won't push it and lift it. Going for meat, don't be afraid to lean into it, strong and confident. When we get to the bridge, you could try a couple of different options depending on what your band leader wants from you. You could try just going indeed to even to power chords, so C power chord, G over B, 2nd fret B note, G note on the D string, 5th fret. A minor, G on B, that might be a bit crunchy, it might be a bit 80s rock. So you can also try maybe with the same kind of tone, maybe try some power chord versions up on the higher strings. They don't sound as 80s. Here's a C with a C on top, then a G, C. Now you can even add that G underneath there on the D string if you want, so it's those top 3 strings though in particular. Then going to a G, which is the D shape, G, there's the 3rd, the 5th, like a D chord, moved up to 7th and 8th fret for G. So C in the bridge. Back to C, G, A. There's A minor, but all of this is just the 5th. It's the 1 and the 5. So whether it's major or minor, it's the same voicing. The D, it says D sus, but we're just playing the 1 and the 5 to go for that crunch, and then back to G. That has the 3rd in there, but maybe that's good in the context, it balances it out a bit, but you might also want to vary that. You might, after hitting the D, you could go for a G5 like that. So that's like that G there, but the 3rd on top is replaced by the 5th. So that's D, G, D. The 7th fret G string, 8th fret B string, and the 10th fret E string giving you D, G, D. Again, that's just the 1s and the 5s, and that's crunchier than that gives the 3rd in there. So just use your ears and decide what you need for that. You can also, when you're going to go for an E minor in the tag, so you could go for an E minor voicing there, which is just the 1, 5, and the 1 and the 5 of E minor. Again, an E minor 7 it is, so you could get, that's like a G triad over an E bass note, so the G will work. So think of that E minor 7 arpeggio bar chord, and you can see the G triad on top of it. Yeah, so again, it's just a matter of really listening to the drums and locking in and trying to be adding that texture. It's not look at me, it's trying to find the way that that just pushes the song and gives it real muscle and meaning and helps people sing with authenticity and passion. Cheers.